Morning, folks. Hope you're all okay. Hope you're all doing well. Right. So again, this is about the third time now I've tried this because I've tried a new camera angle and it's up here. So, but I've got a mirror that's actually sort of there that you can't see. So I'm looking at that. So of course everything's backwards. Right. So this is the Tamiya Easy 8, the European Theatre one from 2016, I think, was it? Something like that. And yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful kit. It's now complete. It's going to go on to a diorama this year sometime. I'm not too sure what yet. I've thoroughly enjoyed the kit. So I marks out of 10 for the kit. I would definitely give it 10. It's definitely good for the beginner too, and you know. So what have I done with it? Right, it's not the Fury tank, as most of you that's watched Fury will be able to tell. It is the just normal European theatre. It's going to be based near enough like the Fury film, which is towards the end of the war when everybody was venturing towards Berlin, and of course Hitler gave those dreaded orders to all the women and children to fight too, which awful things. But anyway, by the by, so I wasn't going to weather it, terribly well or over weather it, as I wasn't too sure what I wanted the diorama to be later this year. Now I've decided that I am going to do that sort of time era when they were going into Berlin and Germany. So I've overweathered it a bit. Well, it's like that age-old argument, isn't it? What's too much weathering? What isn't too much weathering? You know, where but I'm a firm believer of there isn't too much weathering and there isn't too little weathering, because who says that a pristine tank goes down the bottom of the road and goes through a muddy puddle? Then it's drenched, isn't it? So there you go. So let's have a look at what we've done. So a few people have pointed out already they like the camouflage netting. Well, the camouflage netting was given to me by my good friend Greg Riley, and it is this stuff, which is Fields of Glory Models, which that's the website there if you want to have a quick look. It's very, very good. They do all types of resin and buildings and everything, so it's that. However, I do usually make my own, but this one I wanted a bit of a thinner stuff because I had the idea already of going around the barrel and around the turret. It was supposedly going over the turret too. However, that was from the research pictures I'd seen of the tank. However, I didn't want to sort of lose all this detail up the top here, and also I'd weathered it with oils for like a muddy look, and I'd also done paint modulation of sort of where the crew would have gone over time, and a lot. So I sort of lightened it up a bit there, and sort of here and on the front there where the weather would have hit it. So I left it at that basically. Now the string I've used is just normal cotton string. I've tied it around. I originally stuck it on with super glue and it worked fine. However, I'll leave it like this for now because I'm very aware that the camera is crap and it keeps clicking. So there we go. So yeah, I don't know if you can 100% get that well. So what we'll do is we'll put this here a little bit, see if that helps out at all, so you can see it a bit better. So yeah, what I've done is I've written on with a pastel crayon. Is it a pastel crayon? Which is this. Yes, it is pastel pencil. Sorry. I got it off YouTube, eBay, I think, or somewhere a couple of years ago. So obviously it writes on quite well. I sort of like the Allied vehicles that had messages painted on them to home and all that type of thing. I thought it was pretty good. So I decided to add a bit there, and I've also added a couple of markings as though they've done the tank kills there and put mum. And then I've put a bit more here, which is smile, and then it was going to be California sun, but I've sort of smudged it a bit because I didn't want it to, it was too bright. Most of the weathering's been done with ammo of MiG and Vallejo weathering sort of things. Now the best one I've got of those, and I always say this, because you always see it with tanks and that nowadays, with modelling. When they go through fields and that, you just tend to see the mud and everything on the tanks. However, of course, if it was going through fields, you get bits of grass in it too. So the best one I was using that, which is Vallejo crushed grass, which if you wanted to order it was 73.825, and it's from the environment stuff. However, they've got an even better one, which is actually, I don't know if you can read that, mud and grass, which is 73.826 if you wanted to order it. Now this is a fantastic mix, which I don't know if you can see a bit on the edge there. I don't know if you pick that up, I can't really tell, but it's like bits of grass in with the mud, which is obviously a lot more realistic, which I quite like. So I've sort of added all the better. See, I did it all a bit backwards really. I attached all the wheels and the bogies, and then I painted it. Which, if I did this kit again, I'd leave all the bogies off and paint everything that way, so you can get behind. Because it was a bit of a struggle to sort of get behind with the paintbrush and all that type of thing. So, it's not the greatest. I originally started the weathering with oils, and the mud and the staining down here where the crew would have stepped up and all that type of thing is all done by, I think it was the Abteilung sort of set of oils for it. Because I originally was just going to stop with that. However, obviously I decided to just do it and get it done for that. I've added a rifle just on the top here. I've only just this second added the strap to it, so it looks a bit more realistic. I wasn't going to bother, but I did. The stowage at the back here is Value Gear and Eureka XXL, which is also a company. There's a jack off a German vehicle that I've used, and a metal rod that I've just added on as though the crew had found it and stripped a tank, and also an axe just down here, which I don't think you see because the rope's done. The fiddliest part was just the rope of tying it through and getting all that sorted, so I used basically a couple of tweezers to get it done. A few people on the Facebook pages have commented on the bike. The bike is actually from a Tamiya set of two Germans riding a bike. I've done that. There's a couple of German rifles that I've tied up in a rope and stuck it into the back of this barrel, this wooden barrel here. As you can see, the big red thing over there, if any of you aren't aware, which I'm sure the majority of you are, during the Second World War, to stop friendly fire incidents and that, the tank crews would get out these panels, which are air recognition panels, to stop them, obviously their own aircraft blowing them up and attacking them, so to speak. So I've just added a red one. I believe it's supposed to have a bit of a border too, which I think is yellow or something like that. But of course, over time, the Germans got used to and were fully aware of what the Allies were doing, so they copied it. So each week, I think, or each month, I think it was each week, the Allies would change them to stop the Germans getting aware of what was happening. Oil stains down here are done with my usual go-to oil, which is MiG ammo, engines and oil set, I think, or something like that. Comes with engine grime, fuel stains and oil stains, so I just build it up basically. I wanted a section on the tank, which is very strange, I know, but I wanted a section of rust, and I basically did this part here. Now, if you look closely at it, it does look like it's at the actual tank that's rusted. However, there's some barbed wire here which I've added and put some rust onto there. So, and the hook that the rope goes through. So I'm just basically going to say it's just a bit of rust off there. It's all built up over the time. The sort of dry brushing was done with. I always use this Citadel rune fang steel or runner fang steel or whatever it is. to dry brush with. It seems to stay a bit wetter, doesn't dry so quick, which I thought was good. The decals were great. Whether or not the new Tamiya decals, the newer kits are coming out with a bit thinner decals. I didn't have any problems with them whatsoever. However, there was only 3, which is 1, 2, 3 and 4, and then 5 for the machine gun, the ammunition canister there. I've added a piece of wood across here, which is basically a coffee stirrer, weathered it and painted it, so of course it's got the proper wooden technique on it. Added a chain around there. What else have I done? They're the kit tracks, which are the rubber band ones. Went on a treat, no problem at all. I've probably said the sort of stowage is value gear. You've got the 50 cal on top here, which was a metal barrel. I cut the barrel off and added an RB barrels one because it was all new sprues for the Easy 8 and new mouldings from Tamiya, but they just always recycled their old 50 cals and shut them in, so it was a bit naff. So I've had it for a couple of years really, so I've just chopped the barrel end off and added that on, and it does look a hell of a lot better. The smaller machine gun at the back here is recycled off my M3 Stuart, I think it was off. I took it off the top there because that's a really old build of mine, so I just added it on the back here. The aerial is brass wiring, which I use. That's about it really, guys. The exhausts, I've added some oil paint to the actual entry holes to the exhaust because of wet fuel coming through, and I've just painted sort of a rust, I think it was rust tracks, I think I added to the exhaust here, and then there's like a vent that moves, and I've just sort of weathered that to how it would be. I've added, of course, oil and that around the bottom of the turret because obviously it would have been greased up for turning and all that type of thing. What I do is for glossies, I tend to, if I'm going to use I tend to try and use a satin. I mean, if it's an aircraft, I always go glossy, so I always use Tamiya. Let's get them down so we know. I use the, sorry guys, I use the, for glossies, I use the X22 gloss for possibly aircraft and that type of thing, to get the decals on. And I always thin all of my Tamiya paints now with this. It's excellent, it really is. It makes them stick and flatten so good, it's untrue. And I tend to use that depending on the vehicle and what sort of weathering I've decided to do. And then if I'm using I want an in-between matte and glossy thing, I use this Vallejo polyurethane satin gloss, and I tend to try and thin that with its own thinner. And then if I want a matte, well, during the build process, I always add the Tamiya flat clear if I'm going to be using that, which is XF86, again weathered with the, thinned with the Mr. Hobby, flattener. I always use that type of flat coat first if I'm still going to be weathering on top of it and that. And then for a final matte, because it's bulletproof and it's just fantastic. I swore by the Tamiya flat for months and months and months. And then I went to Telford last year and I actually spoke to Dave, who was on the Alclad stand, and I said to him that I wanted a different matte coat because on my Joe's group build diorama, the figures seem to be a bit too shiny for the Tamiya matte, and I just didn't like it. And I tried a couple of times to sort it, and it just, they stayed the same. So I wanted something that would be really flat. So he recommended this, and it is bulletproof, literally. So I've now gone on to using this, and it's fantastic. I mean, since Telford, which was November, I've used that, and I've done about 4 builds, and it's had about 5 or 6 different coats here and there of matte. So it's not too bad. So yeah, that's given it the flat colour. So that's the tank. Now the figures, I've just used basically this dragon set, which I wanted to use for the. Let's move this vehicle out of the way for a bit. For some of the figures, and of course the kit figure, which is the Tamiya one, so I used that one. And then I just wanted to basically use the driver here, and then this guy, which I've used just for inside for the driving. However, Shane did actually say he did bad things about this this kit, so I gave it a go, see what it was. Oh my god, they had instructions, right, but there's letters and numbers for that don't even exist in the kit, and then there's pieces in the kit that have not gotten any numbers for the thing. So like here, down this bit here on figure number 4, which is this chap here, there's the bit where the head gear comes out round the back, it doesn't fit, and then there's a piece here that you have to try and sort, and that doesn't work. So, oh grief. So anyway, yeah, I seriously wouldn't recommend this kit, but you know I did, so I used it. So these are the figures, and that's the one I was telling you about first. Now, I'm a bit miffed actually, because I've done him. I've sort of painted him and put the highlights on him and everything in the face and everything. So I thought I'd done a great job, and then I've applied the wash, and I went downstairs for 20 minutes or so, got a brew and everything else, and it looks like it's eaten through the Tamiya matte coat. So I'm not particularly great chuffed with that. So it's not damaged them and knackered them up completely. It just means they look a bit dirtier than I wanted them to. I'm quietly impressed with that, to be fair. He's not too bad. The patch on his arm, they were a little bit hard. I don't know if that'll focus in for you. So that was quite difficult. And then these two, that's the driver. I've added a bit of fuse wiring there to sort of which is his throat mic, which goes down there. And then so that'll be inside, so it looks a bit better. So yeah, I mean, it's not they're not. I'm by no means a figure painter, I really aren't. And this is the actual Tamiya figure. This one is. Again, he's okay. There's not much detail on his jacket and that. So he's talking through a mic. So I've added a fuse wire here, so that will go into the top of the tank, so to speak. It's not going to, is it? It's got background. So yeah, so they're the 3 figures, and they're now done. I may give it another flat coat just to seal everything in, but that's it. So yeah, I might release a final reveal with the figures in place and all that of the tank, but I should probably just do stills for that. Yeah, so I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been good. So my next project will be the Kursk group build that Mike Cohen and Nigel Wells are running. So on YouTube, it's Nigel's channel is My Modelling World, all one sort of word, and Cohen's is Cohen C. So check them both out, guys. They're very, very extremely talented modellers. So yeah, give them a go. So that's what I'm going to be doing next. I'm not telling you what I'm doing on this video for that build, but it's another Tamiya kit. I'm almost certain I'm going to be doing. But yeah, so anyway, guys, hope you're well. Hope you'll stay safe, and may the force be with you. Thanks, guys.